Thank you, Tina, for a great presentation. My friends, good afternoon. First of all, you know my name by now, Raj Parti. Yes, it sounds like party, and I'm a doctor, so Dr. Parti. And the funniest thing is, like in the morning, when I'm an anesthesiologist, when I used to go to the patient and say, hi, my name is Dr. Parti, they won't believe it. I had to have the nurse or show my driver's license. They used to think as an anesthesiologist, I'm going to give them laughing gas, morphine, the good stuff, so I have named myself Dr. Parti. I came to America in 1982 when I was 22 years old. I grew up in India in a middle-class family. My father was an air traffic controller and my mother was an English teacher. My father emphasized in me the importance of success, especially in material success in life. My mother was more on the spiritual side, but my father was the person who had the most influence in my life. And for some reason or the other, no matter how successful I became, I was never good enough for him. So that was my thing I grew up with. I'll talk to you about how my NDE transformed me. But before I talk to you how my NDE transformed me, I'll take you back to my life before my NDE. As I mentioned, I was a cardiac anesthesiologist. I was the chief of anesthesia at Bakersfield Heart Hospital. And in cardiac anesthesia is one of the most stressful jobs as a physician. We put the patient's heart for heart surgery, we literally stop the patient's heart. When the heart is stopped, the surgeon does the operation. And then, in the end, just like jumper cables, we apply 2 cables and a current or shock the heart back. And so many times, the heart does not start back and the patient does not make it in spite of our effort. That used to be very stressful. My job as a cardiac anesthesiologist afforded me good income, good lifestyle. At least from the outside, my life was good. Me and my wife as a dentist, we combined had a good 7-figure income. We lived in a palatial 10,000 square foot house. Materialism was important to me that time. It was on a golf course, a lake, and I drove expensive cars. I had a sports BMW, my wife had a sports Mercedes, and so much so I even had a Hummer. I wanted to have the extreme SUV. And it was a copper color, sunburnt Hummer. Driving it, I used to feel like king of the road. And if somebody crossed me, I would go behind them, and the poor guy would look up, see a tank coming, and move away. I was a bad boy. It only gave 8 miles a gallon, but that time I didn't care about the environment. I could afford it. That was what mattered to me. But this lifestyle, this consumer lifestyle eventually caught up to me. I got less and less happiness from no matter how many toys I bought. There was some deep emptiness within my heart, and that only got better after my NDE. I was working 60 to 70 hours a week to pay for my mortgage. My mortgage was about $15,000 a month. And I used to think, does the house own me or I own the house? I was working for the house. And this was, in short, my life before my NDE. And my life was equally stressful in my personal level too. Just giving you one small example how my day used to start. At 6 o'clock in the morning, I would be rushing to the hospital, having a cup of coffee in one hand, then eating a sandwich while driving, then talking to the nurse regarding the first case, then talking to my stockbroker, and then driving at the same time. That was multitasking to the extreme. And that time I used to believe the more multitasking you can do, the better you are. This is how my life was till August of 2008. In August of 2008, I received a call from my urologist, Dr. Chang, and it changed my life forever. He told me I had prostate cancer. I was just 52 years old that time. But he said that was the bad news. But the good news is, if we do the radical prostatectomy, which means take the whole prostate out, you will be cured. So within a month, I went for radical prostatectomy. The whole cancer was gone, but it left me with a lot of complications. And the complications were like chronic pelvic pain, scarring, and incontinence. And to correct these complications, I had repeat surgeries, about 7 total in 2 years. And all these things had a lot of effect on me spiritually and emotionally. I became depressed. I had to take 2 or 3 antidepressants that time. And For chronic pain, I was prescribed narcotic medications like Vicodin, methadone, and Norco, and I became dependent upon them. Though I was the one who used to write these medications for other patients, but now I became dependent or quote-unquote addicted to them, because addiction was a very big thing in my life that time. The last surgery I had was to correct my incontinence, but unfortunately, that surgery did not go that well. 2-3 days after the surgery, I developed redness, swelling, and a fever of 105. And this was just prior to the Christmas. I was getting septic. So my wife rushed me from Bakersfield to UCLA, which is about 2 hours drive, to the emergency room. It was one of the most agonizing travel I had, with severe pain, redness, swelling, trembling like a leaf, thinking that is my last night. In the hospital, I was put on heavy-duty antibiotics. I was given IV narcotics to control the pain, and then I was rushed to the emergency surgery on the Christmas day. I still remember it very well. That's how I spent my Christmas 2010. During surgery, general anesthesia was induced. I was supposed to be asleep, and I am an anesthesiologist. Instead of being totally asleep like other surgeries, my consciousness separated from my body. I was in so much of psychological and physical stress. I could see myself about 8 to 10 feet from the operating room and see myself being operated. So much so, I even heard the anesthesiologist tell a joke, which I verified later in the recovery room. I can't tell that joke in public right now. If somebody was to ask me in private, I can tell that joke. And from there, I'm trying to be brief because Debbie told me to. Yeah. From there, I would love to say that my consciousness, I don't need notes, my consciousness went to a very serene place, but unfortunately it did not. My journey to the other realm started from a hellish place. It was thunderstorm, fire burning, and I was wondering, why did I come here? Then I was given the realization that I came here because so far my life had been a very mean life, very selfish life. It was all about me. What can I get, not what can I do for somebody? And that was my nature. I would cut somebody off. I would be, nasty to my kids if they failed, or not so good to my wife either. From there, while I was there, my father showed up, and my father had passed about 20 years ago and he had died following a heart attack in Fresno, and then he had heart surgery and he didn't make it, unfortunately. My father led me, like holding a little boy I was, towards the tunnel. And while going through the tunnel, I had a life review of my present life, and I also had a review of my past lives. And one of the past lives were the same past life I had experienced about 5 years ago with Dr. Brian Weiss. Have you heard of Dr. Brian Weiss? He's a pioneer in past life regression. And what had happened that time, about 5 years ago, I had developed a wrist pain following a wrist surgery. And that pain was not getting better. And when I went to Dr. Brian's session, he regressed, and I regressed myself to being a prince. I know, prince, I always want to be the prince. Prince in the medieval times, and I was cruel. And I was whipping the poor peasants with a whip. And I was giving the same order to my soldiers. And then I asked forgiveness from those peasants, and incidentally, after that, my hand got better within 2 to 3 weeks, and I was able to go back to work. Like Anita said yesterday, I used to wonder, how come in this present life I could go back and ask for forgiveness? But like as Anita said yesterday, present, past, and future all exist at the same time in the other realm. It was a wonderful lecture she gave, and it clarified a lot of things. So as my journey continues from the tunnel on the other side, my father led me through the tunnel. I was greeted by 2 robust, young, very healthy young men, light beings, and they were my angels, Raphael and Michael. And my wife, when I told my wife my story, she said, what happened to the thousands of Hindu gods? None of them showed up. Because, we have a God for village, we have a God for family, we have a God for town, we have a God for state, we have a God for India. So there are thousands of Indian gods. But I got to tell what happened. And then it made a lot of sense for me. Michael is what I studied after that for Michael, and I studied about Raphael, and Raphael especially is the angel of healing and is the guardian angel for doctors and healers. They guided me towards the higher and higher realms, as Dr. Eben was talking about, going from lower realms to higher and higher realms. In the higher realms, I was in the presence of a light blue light, whitish light. And yesterday, what amazed me was one lady, Tennis from Seattle. Tennis, what was her full name? No, Tennis Prout. Tennis Prout, I think. Anyway, Tennis, right? Kim from Seattle group. Tennis from Vancouver, sorry. So I know Seattle, Vancouver are next to each other.
But I can tell the joke when you get to it.
Oh, yeah, I know, I told her the joke. So when we were having lunch yesterday with Anita sitting, and she said, she was staring at me, then I looked at her, why are you staring at me? She said, because I'm seeing a blue light above your head. And then I remembered, I saw the blue light on the other side too. I was in that presence. In that blue light's presence, I was given the understanding, as she mentioned, in the other realm they don't talk, but it's just given the understanding, telepathically the transference there, that my life will be spared. Everything will be okay with me. But a lot of things has to change in my life. I will have to lead a spiritual life. I may give up my job as an anesthesiologist. Am I prepared for that? And these instructions are being given to me. And while these instructions were being given to me, I suddenly woke up with a jolt in the recovery room. I talked to the anesthesiologist. He verified the joke, but he gave the impression, oh, you must be light, that's why you heard it. That's the way most of the doctors or anesthesiologists would say that. In short, after my NDE, within 3 to 4 weeks, the circumstances became like that. The opportunities came to me that I gave up my job as an anesthesiologist. It was a very lucrative job, but now I was ready to be a healer of the soul, especially for the 3 conditions: cancer, addiction, and chronic pain, which I had suffered myself. I was given the understanding, because I had to suffer these conditions, so I have more empathy for the patients, to be a healer of the soul. I sold my house, 10,000 square foot house, and moved to a modest house. I sold my Hummer, I sold my sports car, and I bought a Toyota Camry hybrid. My life literally and figuratively went from Hummer to hybrid. It was a guy who did not care for 8 miles a gallon, now gets 40 miles a gallon, But now, I was not afraid to be seen in a Toyota Camry. Previously, I would say, what will my friends think? What happened to Raj? He's driving a Camry now? But I was above that now. What I needed was a safe car which could drive me around and was environmental friendly. And as a result of my experience, I wrote a book, The Soul of Wellness. The Soul of Wellness basically talks about wellness is at 4 levels: physical, mental, social, and spiritual. And spiritual wellness is one of the most important things I emphasize. And this is wellness which for some people is God, for some people it is divine, for some people it is nature, or for other people it could be something higher which connects you to something higher power. And if somebody does not believe in God, it could be just prevention of child abuse or child pornography, something higher than your own self. That's what being connected to the Spirit is towards me. And I formulated 12 principles for this, achieving this total wellness, which is practice of love, compassion, divine you, and as I mentioned, connected to the Spirit. My message can be talked in about 3 words, and that is forgive, love, and heal. And if I want to expand that, my friends, love passionately, forgive easily, and heal quickly. That's my message in these 3 words. In the end, I'll just say that in my previous life, I used to put people to sleep. Now I wake them up. Thank you.
That was beautiful. God bless you. Okay, I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then we would like to have the audience ask questions as well. So, Tina, I'd like to ask you the question that whenever Rajiv finished, he gave us 3 words. I don't think we're going to forget his 3 words. 3 words that's the walk-away message. What 3 words or 1 sentence would you say is your message for the audience?
Love is definitely the answer, and this is definitely not, this is all an illusion, that we can access the light anytime that we wish. We don't have to have a near-death experience. It's more than 3 words.
That was the perfect 3 words. Rajiv, you said something in your presentation about empathy for patients. You have empathy for patients, and you also told us that you used to put them to sleep and now you wake them up. So in terms of empathy for patients, either tell us a little bit more about that or give us an example.
Giving an example, prior to my ND, I used to also have a pain management practice. I vividly remember a 70-year-old woman came to my practice. She had arthritis, and she was a repeat patient. And she was under stress, but I was in a rush. She wanted to talk to me because her husband was dying of cancer. She just wanted to talk to somebody, just have a shoulder to cry on, but I just gave her the prescription and walked away. I said, I've done my job. She wanted a prescription. I gave her a prescription. That was lack of total empathy for that lady, that I needed to treat her with respect, not just a patient with arthritis, to treat her as a human being. That was total lack of empathy. But now, in my new life as a healer of the soul, I listen to the patients, I listen to their problems, and I spend time with them. Actually, they have done studies in medical literature. If a doctor spends 15 minutes while standing, or if he spends the same 15 minutes by sitting and holding the patient's hand or touching them, the patient feels much, much better when the doctor touches them and sits down to listen to their issues. That's what I mean by empathy.
Beautiful. Touches really so much.
That's why hug is so important, hugging increases the prolactin, oxytocin, the good hormones.
There you go. Also, something I heard whenever I was listening to him is listen. It has the same letters as silent. And what I heard you say is you shut up and listen. Yes. Good job. Good job. Okay, Judith, my question for you is, oh my gosh, you talked about color and it was there. I mean, really beautiful. Wouldn't you all agree? Wow. Okay, so my question is, you have none of that with you. I'm a person who doesn't know anything about near-death experiences. Help me see what you know about near-death experiences without that beautiful stuff. Just tell me a word, a sentence about near-death experience. What should I know?
Look within. It's all within. So you can bring that other realm right here within. We have a seed within us that is just, it's like an acorn. It's waiting to open and expand. But we have to find it. And we have to look within. And one of the beginning steps is to silence thoughts. When you you can lay down. You don't have to be sitting in some guru position. You just lay down on your bed, relax, see if you can the thoughts, just let them flow by. Just watch them as if there's an observer or witness. And eventually, you will feel that peace and that love. It's just there. It's there for everyone at any moment.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay, so it's your turn. It's your turn, and what I told the panel is that you might ask a question that any of the 3 of them could answer, or you might tell me what, okay. Or you might say, Rajiv, please tell us. So in other words, be open, it's okay, and they might each answer 1 question. So go ahead.
Is this on? I have an observation. I'd like to make a comment, and just about all the speakers I've heard at the conference have hinted at this, but actually haven't come out and said it. But my perspective is that unconditional love is a near-death experience.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. All three are
Yeah.
saying thank you, in case you can't hear them.
Dr. Rajiv, I'd just like to ask, how did your wife go along with this change in lifestyle? Did she give up her BMW or whatever one she had?
No, I gave up mine, she didn't. You know, she was very supportive. We have been married for 25 years, but it was a shock to my family, my friends, when I started doing these radical changes. But my wife is a wonderful woman, and she has given me literally unconditional love. We just celebrated our 25th anniversary. I surprised her with a trip to Paris and Venice in February, and it was a wonderful, magical experience. But it was a big change for her to, like giving up what her friends will be thinking, but she has spiritually grown with me. And same has been my experience of my kids. They were always used to a different lifestyle, and they also understood, and they are the people who help me type things because I don't know how to type or make my PowerPoints and those things. Thank you.
Yes?
Dr. Raj, do you have any compulsion to share your stories with other physicians?
Like yesterday, during the doctor's panel, like Dr. Mary Neal said, being surgeons and anesthesiologists, when we share our stories, they think, oh, it's a hallucination. They're not that supportive. But when the doctor, I forgot her name, Pam, I think, family practitioner, they are more open, integrative physicians are more open to other therapies. Surgeons and anesthesiologists cut, sew, and that's what they do.
Oh, sorry. Other questions? Yes. Microphone so we can get it on the tape.
Dr. Raf, since you and I come from because similar culture background, the thing that since I came here at the beginning of the conference, for near-death experience, the person we call with the word, when the spirit travel outside the body, I use the word, they see only the heaven, and for you, you classify, you saw the hell, that's that. When you mentioned about the lightning or something like that. So then nobody see the hell, and you classify, did you see the hell or the heaven when you are out of the body?
Sorry, I didn't understand the question. Can you tell me what she asked me?
You want to go ahead and repeat it because that.
Yeah, the question is, do you think that near-death experience, has the hell or not mine?
Yeah, okay, like my experience started with a hellish experience.
Yes.
Dr. Evans talked about it all, and I think he talked about a little bit that he went from the earthworm view or something. For me, it was hellish experience to begin with, and I honestly believe 1 hour of pain is a better teacher than 1 day of pleasure. And probably I had learned more during that little bit of hellish experience that I had than I learned when I was in heavenly area.
So my conclusion, when I come here, it means there is no hell. That's a hell. No hell.
I experienced it. I don't know how I can. Ultimately there is only pure love. Hell and is an illusion too. But at lower levels of consciousness, there is some hellish areas. But if you go higher and higher, it's all oneness. It's pure consciousness. That's all exists. And pure consciousness, in Indian language, they say is 3 words: Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat means truth. Chit means consciousness. Ananda means supreme bliss. That is only thing which exists in reality. It all depends on which level of consciousness one is approaching the question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was taught that what we call hell is really a reflection of our fears. And so if we find ourselves in a place like that, all we have to do is ask for help. And a person I've talked to and accounts I've read, people who have asked for help, there's usually a hand or a being that comes and helps them. So overcoming one's fears is really important. You know, fears are imaginary, basically, or illusionary, even though they feel real.
Thank you, Judy.
So I can practice what I preach. We are out of time, and so it wouldn't be fair for us to go over time. So thank you all, and thank you, panelists, for sharing what you've done with us.